Welcome back. All right, it has been a long time since I talked about attendance in the National Hockey League. So what we've got on the board is the current attendance in black. This is this season. I got this from Hockey Database. And then also from Hockey Database, the attendance 5 years ago is in red. The attendance 10 years ago is in blue. And just look at trends, how teams are doing, that kind of thing. So Montreal, the highest attendance this season. Utah at the bottom, but of course Utah's renovating their arena. Eventually their attendance is going to be much, much higher once they've finished the renovations. So Utah definitely, there's a couple asterisks you can put down there, but we'll get to Utah. So starting with Montreal, this season 21,106. 5 years ago 21,047. 10 years ago 21,267 fans per game. Montreal, never a problem with attendance. It's not a thing. So as ticket prices go up, Montreal just they'll fill it. And I know ticket prices have gone up everywhere over the last 10 years. I'm just, mentioning that because there are definitely some markets that I think get affected by prices going up and economics and everything. Detroit, 19,420. That's second this season. 5 years ago, they were at 19,121. So they're higher than they were 5 years ago. And 10 years ago, 20,027. So that was the 2014-2015 season. Last time they made the playoffs was 2015, wasn't it? It was 2015 or 2016. Either way, Detroit doing pretty darn well in terms of ticket sales, even though the team on the ice has not progressed at this stage. Tampa, very consistent. 19,092, which is a sellout. 5 years ago, 19,092. 10 years ago, 18,823. And yet there are still people who will say, well, yeah, Tampa, they'll show up for the winner, but we'll see what happens when they're not a winner. That they've been very, very consistent. Carolina has come a long way over the last 10 years. Right now, they're at 18,773 fans per game. 5 years ago, that was at 14,322. 10 years ago, 12,716. It is crazy to see how high their attendance is. And remember that at one point, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago, we were hearing people complaining that, well, Carolina doesn't work. They're not a hockey market. You got to move the team. Nope, you just need competent ownership and good management, and suddenly the fans show up. Toronto, 18,764 this year, which is down from 19,276 5 years ago, 19,063 10 years ago. But does Toronto have any kind of attendance problem? No, none. Vancouver, so I might have got priced out of buying tickets, but a lot of people didn't. 18,710 fans per game this season. 5 years ago, that was at 18,022. 10 years ago, 18,711. So there's one dude who isn't in attendance now that was in attendance 10 years ago. That's the only way that I can interpret that. The other 18,710 are the same, just somebody sitting there next to an empty seat and going, Bill was here 10 years ago. Do you know where he is? Chicago, attendance is down from where they were 5 years ago, which is not really a surprise. Chicago is an interesting location in that people will stay away if the team's not very good. 18,628. And I say that because not all locations work that way, but 18,628 per game this season, which is still very good. 5 years ago, 22,734 fans per game. 10 years ago, 21,765 fans per game. Florida, what a huge jump Florida's gone through. 18,349 fans per game this year. 5 years ago, 13,262. 10 years ago, 11,271. So, Florida, good ownership. Yep. Good management. Absolutely. But the taxes. It's all the taxes. The reality is they're getting about 7,000 fans more per game now than they were 10 years ago. That's some good money. And that definitely helps with the bottom line. This was the team that was losing money, even with low attendance, and with not spending much money either. It was not a money-making scenario until very recently. Edmonton, 18,347 fans per game, which is the same as they had 5 years ago, so that's a sellout. And 10 years ago, 16,839. So again, Edmonton is a very reliable market, and no matter how good or bad that team is, fans come out and support. Minnesota, 18,124 fans per game this season. The weird part is that's actually down. 5 years ago, 18,908. 10 years ago, 19,023. So even though Minnesota, the team, is fantastic on the ice. At this point, the attendance has been down a bit from where it was 5 years ago, and definitely down from where it was 10 years ago. The Dallas Stars, 18,053 fans per game this season. 5 years ago, that was 18,178. 10 years ago, 17,350. Dallas is consistent too. You're going to see some empty seats. One thing to keep in mind is when you see those empty seats when you're watching on TV, that's your lower bowl seats. Those might be corporate seats. They very well could be season ticket holders. They're like, I don't really feel like going tonight, or they have plans. So I don't read too much into some empty seats here and there, but you do see that with Dallas. Philadelphia, 18,052 fans per game this season. 5 years ago, 20,372. 10 years ago, 19,271. So is Philadelphia down from where they were 5 years ago? Yes. The franchise itself, though, is down from where it was 5 years ago. So I think there's a reflection there. And once again, this is a team that's still drawing enough fans that you're not going to hear any complaints about attendance there. Colorado, 18,047 fans per game this year, which is up from where they were 5 years ago, which was 17,133. And a decade ago, it was 16,177. Colorado, of course, winning the Stanley Cup in 2022, which definitely helps with your tickets going forward. People want to see your product and want to see your team when they know that there's a good chance that they could win another championship. So I think that's part of it with Colorado. New York Rangers, 17,968 fans per game this season. 5 years ago, 17,319, and 10 years ago, it was 18,006. I believe MSG has standing room tickets, or that they sell over capacity. Some teams do this. It doesn't feel like it happens as often now as it may have back when I started watching hockey. Standing room only was definitely more of a thing. It feels like back when I started watching hockey far more than now. But again, maybe it's just a matter of teams not wanting those standing room only seats, which aren't really seats, right? Because you're able to stand and watch the game. I can understand why standing room only isn't as much of a thing now as it was back in the day. Vegas, 17,889 fans per game this season, which is down from 18,319 5 years ago. And their first season, 2017-2018, that 18,042. But is it down substantially? No. Is there any danger of Vegas dropping off in terms of attendance? I can't see it. The expectation some people have is when Vegas is no longer a contender, we may see that number drop. But at this point, there doesn't seem to be any loss of appetite for Vegas Golden Knights hockey. Boston, very reliable numbers from Boston. 17,856 per game this year. 5 and 10 years ago, that number was 17,565. Boston does not have the same capacity as others, but they do fill the building. They do 100% sell out. And so, yeah, Boston, pretty strong supporter. The original 6 teams in general, very strong supporters of their teams. Washington, 17,655 fans per game. Bit of a surprise that it's a drop. And there are economic factors that will cause that. 18,508 fans per game 5 years ago. 10 years ago, 19,099. Washington, of course, they're going to basically revitalize the area, and they're looking to sell some more tickets there. But yeah, the Washington Capitals, another team there's really no danger with. And this is part of the reason I wanted to do this, because with Arizona moving to Utah, the question then becomes one of who would move next. I don't think anybody's in any danger of moving. 17,518 fans per game in St. Louis. That's up from where it was 5 years ago at 17,302. It's down from where it was 10 years ago at 18,545. It's a loud crowd in St. Louis, and it's a mostly full building, so that's good news. Nashville, 17,278 fans per game this year. Considering the product that they got on the ice, that's a minor miracle. 5 years ago, they had 17,446 fans per game. 10 years ago, it was 16,854. So they're still getting better attendance than they were 10 years ago. Nashville fans will support this team. I would say with the record they've had this season, that kind of supports they support their team no matter what kind of idea. For Calgary, 17,242 fans per game this season, which is down from where it was 5 years ago, 18,501, and 10 years ago it was 19,097. The Calgary Flames, definitely a team that's looking forward to getting their new arena. I don't think the Saddle Dome state is why the attendance is down from where it was 10 years ago. I think that's more a reflection of maybe expectations. There are economic considerations in Alberta as well. Um, Although the numbers stayed the same in Edmonton, Edmonton and Calgary are very different. So, yeah, it might be more affecting Calgary than Edmonton. And so that is something to keep in mind. Seattle's very consistent, 17,151 fans per game, as they've had since their first season, which was 2021-2022. Seattle is a hockey city. Ottawa, 17,065 fans per game this year. Remarkable, because 5 years ago that was 14,553. That was around when Eugene Melnick was like, be a shame if we had to move, but maybe. 10 years ago, that attendance was 18,247. We know Ottawa's working on getting that new stadium of their own as well. And so once that stadium is built, I would think there's more stabilization in terms of their tickets. But they're selling just fine this year. And that's despite this team not really hitting the expectations that were placed upon them before the season got started. The LA Kings, it's down 16,989 fans per game. 5 years ago, 18,001. 10 years ago, 18,266. But the LA Kings, it is curious with California. It does feel like California fans are far more likely to go out and support a winner than maybe some of the others, where no matter how the team's doing, like Nashville, no matter how the team's doing, fans will go out and support it. But at LA, they show up enough that you don't have to, have that conversation. I don't know if this is going to work in LA. You're never going to hear that. Pittsburgh, 16,435 fans per game this year. 5 years ago, that was 18,566. 10 years ago, 18,618. Pittsburgh's record is going to be negatively impacting that, I would think. Plus, they've missed the playoffs the last couple of seasons. So Pittsburgh, I think that number bounces back if they continue winning as they have recently. They've won 4 of their last 5. But, Pennsylvania, down in Philadelphia, down in Pittsburgh, that's where you ask yourself, could there be economic reasons? Absolutely. Especially with ticket prices going up and people's income not necessarily keeping up with that and the inflation and everything. We've all been through that. Columbus, 16,213 fans per game. That's down from 5 years ago, where it was 16,658, and 10 years ago, 15,512. There's every now and then these comments of Columbus and whether or not that market works. Columbus, you do get empty seats, but it's never dropped to a level, nor have I ever heard anything about the team losing money where you'd say, oh, this may not work. I've never heard that of Columbus from anybody attached to the National Hockey League, like any of the reporters. I've never heard that leaking out from any other owners of how they're tired of subsidizing Columbus, because I haven't heard Columbus loses money either. But again, there's teams they're out drawing. And considering Columbus hasn't had any success in a postseason for some time now, I think it's remarkable their numbers have stayed as consistent as they have. New Jersey, 16,065 fans per game. That's actually up. 5 years ago, that was 14,834. And 10 years ago, it was 15,190. New Jersey's always been a bit of a challenge. And I can remember back to the 80s when the attendance wasn't where they wanted it to be when they moved there from Colorado, and there was discussions of whether or not they were going to last at Meadowlands or what was going to happen, and it's worked out to this point. They've been there for 40 years. The New Jersey Devils, the attendance is always a little bit less than you might expect, but it's never that low, and I haven't heard anything about them losing money either. Buffalo, and the inspiration behind this in part is the number of empty seats in Buffalo. They're paid attendance, and I want to say paid because clearly not all these people are showing up. 15,586. I think it's the lack of palm trees, personally. That quote, I'm never going to forget that. That was absolutely just amazing. 15,586, way down from where it was 5 years ago, 17,908. 10 years ago, 18,581. This is a hockey market that is very angry with its hockey team. And I don't know how you fix that. And people will say, well, get rid of Kevin Adams. That might start, but you have to get that success on the ice. They haven't made the playoffs in the entire time that these numbers cover. Back to 2014-15, 2018-2019, and now. It's a market that's like, why should we go out and spend money on tickets for a team that's never going to get better? I understand that sentiment as well. So, do I see Buffalo as a relocation threat? No. but the amount of tickets that aren't being sold, the amount of people that aren't showing up, has to start something at an ownership level, right? We'll see. The Islanders, 15,517 fans per game this season. 5 years ago, that was 12,443, which I believe would have been Nassau. 10 years ago, 15,335, which I think was Barclays. But Barclays, we know, didn't work. They have their new arena. The Islanders are stable. Anaheim. I hear a lot of talk about Anaheim. Anaheim hasn't had any reason to go to a hockey game for years. 15,224 fans per game. And that's paid because there's a lot of empty seats in Anaheim right now. It is alarming how empty that building looks. And it is a big, kind of cavernous building. So it's quiet as basically as a rule as well. It just, yeah, on TV, it doesn't necessarily show just how tall that building is and how. Anyways, 5 years ago, Anaheim, 16,814 fans per game. 10 years ago, 16,874. So we know this market will support the team. I think the market does have energy for the team. I think it's just a matter of people not necessarily wanting to buy tickets. It is part of the reason why when we've gone down to California, I think that's part of the reason that the team's like, we'll comp you tickets. We've had tickets comp for us twice so far. And I think that is definitely part of it. There's not a huge demand. There's going to be seats available. And so, yeah, I think until the team gets better, that's going to be the case. Winnipeg. A lot of discussion about Winnipeg. This year, 13,836 fans per game. It is not a full building. 5 years ago, 15,276. 10 years ago, 15,038. Winnipeg fans will tell you that, hey, it's tough. You've got the inflation. You've got, just job insecurities and things like that. But that attendance being down, we know that there's the chance that if this were to continue for, and it's not like, right away, because every now and then I'll see those posts of, it's not working in Winnipeg, they should pull the plug. They gave Arizona 20 years. They're not going to give Winnipeg 2 years of slumping attendance and then go, well, I guess this doesn't work. So Winnipeg's got some rope there that they can use to try to, cinch things together and get it done. But it is one thing about having a smaller building with less attendance. It is. You're going to have fewer of the cheaper tickets. So some people who maybe don't have the money for an expensive ticket that are like with the cheaper ones, maybe those are less in abundance in Winnipeg than they might be in, say, Chicago, Detroit, etc. And so that's going to knock those numbers down too. So there's that. San Jose, 13,304 fans per game. Their empty seats are very noticeable because they got the flashing lights on those seats. It doesn't help. That attendance is way down. San Jose is a hockey market. You would be forgiven for not feeling like it is if you feel that way, if you've been watching recently, because that 13,304 definitely paid attendance, not necessarily how many came through the turnstiles. 5 years ago, that was 17,266. 10 years ago, 18,708. The Shark Tank will be full again. I think Macklin Celebrini himself will sell tickets. And we'll see that number. I would think next season it probably gets into the 15,000 range, and then it'll keep going up. And finally, Utah. 11,131 fans per game this year. In Arizona 5 years ago, 13,939. And 10 years ago, in Arizona, of course, 13,345. Utah, generating more money and excitement than what they were getting out of a university building last year in Arizona. And again, Utah, that number will go up substantially once there's no obstructed seating, right? Once they've got all of that figured out, that attendance number is going to go up by a lot. They had to make the move this summer because Arizona wasn't working anymore. So there you go, 1 through 32. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding how the attendance has been in the NHL and all that. Keeping in mind, the NHL says they're going to make over $7 billion this season in revenues, and a big part of that is attendance. So since the attendance numbers aren't totally off from where they were 5 or 10 years ago, that tells you ticket prices have gone through the roof. So if you're paying for tickets in a Canadian or American market, wherever you are, thanks for supporting the NHL. You're helping them get record profits. So yeah, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Any surprises that you see in anything. And I think this is a good way of showing there aren't any teams out of the 32 right now that there's any concern about the market, any concern about losing money and what's going to happen. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.